Another big edition of the Bucks on Nucks podcast here. I'm not sure what episode we're rolling into. We're just rolling with the punches. And we got another big interview here today. This one's big for us. I've been watching this guy on TV for my entire life, whether it's been with TSN or Sportsnet. I've seen him on Raptors, Olympic Games, like hockey. He's got a big 14-game schedule that he's got to host a panel for tonight on Sportsnet. It is none other than David Amber. David, how you doing today? Welcome to Bucks on Nucks.
Stewie, DK, thanks for having me on. Now, when you say you've been watching me your whole life, that makes me feel super, super old. You're going to tell me you're 14 or 15, I hope, right now.
You know what? Maybe for you, yes. You may have started on TSN the year that I was born. I'm not going to lie.
97?
Yeah, 97. So yeah, for as long as I can remember turning on the TV, David, yeah, you've been one of the ones that have been on TV hosting every big event. And like I said, I'm going to start off with very quickly here, because just to get you in the flow of it, you'd be on my Mount Rushmore of broadcasters that come into Canadian sports broadcast. You'd be on my Mount Rushmore. You'd be up there with the Ron McLeans, the James Duthys. You've been around for just as long. I've watched just as much of you on TV as I have them. What does a Mount Rushmore of broadcasting look like from David Amber's point of view? Like, who's your go-to guys? Who are the guys that you looked up to coming up and like that you've really, welded your career around? You molded your career around.
All right. Well, first of all, thank you. That's very kind of you to add me to. That's a pretty illustrious list of guys you rattled off there, and Ron and James Duthie. And so thank you. That's nice. As far as for me, my Mount Rushmore, I'll start with John Saunders. He was super influential, the late John Saunders, very nice man. I was so lucky to get a chance to work with him a little bit about 10 years ago when I was we were both at ESPN, and we were covering a college football game, the American Bowl, which they play in Toronto. So that was a lot of fun to get a chance to work that closely with him. But there's someone I watched when I was younger, and you know what? Representation matters. He looked like me. I said, wow. And he's a Toronto guy just like me. And he went down and had incredible success on both sides of the border. So there's someone I put up on the Mount Rushmore, long before your time. And certainly as a little kid, I remember watching Howard Cosell. And the thing with Howard Cosell is he sort of had a swagger and a coolness to him that he was as kind of arrogant and as flamboyant as many of the athletes, and the back and forth he'd have with Muhammad Ali and some of the other big moments of coverage he had really resonated with me as like, wow, this guy's unbelievable, right? He was just so loquacious and bombastic at times. So I think he's got to go there as someone who was one of the first, the OGs. I think of Mike Tirico, who does a lot of things with ESPN and now with NBC. The versatility, right? Like on Saturday he's covering golf, on Sunday he's covering NFL, on Tuesdays down into the Olympics doing that, and you're kind of going, oh my God, the World Cup of soccer, whatever it is, he can do everything. And as a Syracuse grad, and he was a Syracuse grad, that was one of the main reasons I went to Syracuse to get a broadcast journalism degree. So I definitely would put Mike Tirico on there. And then maybe Bob Costas.
Yep.
Bob Costas, just incredibly, just so smart, so versatile, a big voice, a big presence. Certainly, as a teenager and into my 20s, watching him on television as well. And he's just had a Hall of Fame type career. But there's so many more guys we could be here all day. I'd have a pretty big Mount Rushmore, but those four guys come to mind right off the hop.
Awesome. David, you talk about versatility, like obviously you've covered ESPN, lots of football, Raptors now. Let me know if I'm mistaken, but it's almost like full-time hockey right now. So like,
yes.
I'm curious to know your story. Like growing up, what kind of sports were you into? What was your main sport? And like, were you always a hockey guy?
Yeah, I'm kind of back to my real grassroots guys. I grew up in Toronto. I played a lot of hockey growing up, loved the game. I was a huge Leaf fan. I see your Leaf sweater. What sweater is that, by the way? I can't tell.
It's a Matthews sweater. Yeah.
Wasn't sure if it was Dave Ellett. I'm not sure. I just see the four. But yeah, I grew up a huge Leafs fan with Sittler and McDonald and Boreas Salming, and those teams were fantastic. Broke your heart many times, but it kind of got that fandom going. And now I cheer for all the Canadian teams equally. I make that clear because it's good for us at Sportsnet. If it's the Jets winning the cup, if it's the Oilers winning the cup, if the Canadians win the cup, it's all good. So unfortunately, we haven't had any of those moments in our first 10 years with the NHL rights. But I grew up a big hockey fan. Grew up playing a lot of different sports. Football and baseball and hockey and soccer. And then by the time I got to college, I just decided I wanted to get into the broadcast journalism side of things. My dad had been an executive producer at CBC for a lot of the sports specials and news specials. He had a much more serious job than I have, and that seemed too heavy to me. But at the same time, I just saw the allure and the excitement of live television. I thought this would be a great career for me to pursue, and thankfully, I've had incredible opportunities, and here we are.
Well, and I see you on the panel, like I said, on Sportsnet all the time. And Stu's got a separate question about the panel, but from the outside looking in, it really looks like that, David Amber is going to be the next. You're kind of like getting massaged in to be the next Ron MacLean. Ron MacLean's been the Hockey Night in Canada on Saturday, and maybe that's too far of a looking into it on my end, but it's just the way that you're comfortable there. It's I felt like it'd been kind of a carousel of guys that had been hosting that same panel since they've gotten the rights, and all of a sudden with you there, you've really stuck to it. And outside of like Ron MacLean's only got so many years left. So is that kind of the next step to this career, or is this just it is what it is for now, and we'll see what happens in the future?
Yeah, I try not to look too far ahead. I mean, listen, Ron's a legend. Ron's not going anywhere. Pardon me, guys. Got me all choked up here. Ron, I've learned a lot for. He's been a great mentor, a great friend, and a great colleague. So it's been really nice to work alongside him and see how he does things. And he just has a vault of information, and he has such a great passion for the game. And I've been, really lucky to be afforded some great opportunities to get on the panel and work with guys like Bieksa and Kelly and Elliot and all the guys we work with. So that's been a lot of fun for me. That would be a great honor. Listen, Hockey Night in Canada, I'm not going to lie. If that ends up one day being something that I get that opportunity to do, that I would cherish that. It'd be a great responsibility and an amazing privilege, and we'll see what happens.
Awesome. That leads me right into mine, because I was going to mention Bieksa and Kelly and Elliot. You see a lot of guys and lots of great personalities go through on different panels, whatever the network, right? So at Sportsnet, Bieksa kind of came in and added a little bit of humor and that kind of player experience, more recent player experience than a lot of the guys, right? So I'm curious to know, and for example, him and Elliot, right? Completely different backgrounds, but both very valuable to that panel. So what do you think are the character traits that make a good panel dynamic?
You need chemistry. And I can tell you genuinely offset, as much as Elliot and Bieksa give it to each other on set, and it looks like, oh my God, they don't like each other. They're good buddies, actually. And, Kelly's one of the nicest gentlemen you'll ever come across. And he watches the game through such a sophisticated lens. And Ron's a perfect gentleman. And Jennifer, we all get along really, really well. I do a Monday night show, Rogers Monday Night Hockey, and we have Colby Armstrong, Anson Carter, Cassie Campbell-Pascal, Justin Williams are the analysts we have on our show. And we all get along great. We have the same sense of humor, and, you can kind of jab a little bit at each other, and it's all in good fun. I think that comes through on air, right? If there is, if people are too worried about, I need more airtime, or I need to, kind of take over the show and I need to talk too much, it's not going to work. It's a collaboration at the end of the day. Essentially, I'm just the traffic control guy, right? I'm tossing up. I didn't play professional hockey. I'm sitting on a Monday night beside Cassie Campbell-Pascal, who's won, Olympic gold and, captained Canada to some incredible international moments. And Anson Carter, who's won World Junior gold, World Championship gold, 200 plus goals in the NHL. Colby Armstrong won World Championship gold. It's not for me to try and show how much I know. It's about me allowing them to showcase what they know and to share their expertise and really bring out their personality and their love and passion for the game. So it's great. The chemistry, you ask what characteristics. I think you need people who are great listeners, have big, strong opinions, and aren't afraid to even make fun of themselves. Kevin Bieksa is a great example of that. He'll be the first to come onto the set with all this bravado, but then he'll kind of go, and I missed my assignment there, and I was a -3 in this game, and I got beat up in that fight. And you need that. And I think, smaller egos and a bigger group mentality goes really well on a any sports broadcasting.
No doubt. I saw, absolutely. What did he say the other night? Sorry, DK, I cut you off a little bit, but I don't know if you were hosting that panel or if it was Ron. I can't remember what day it was, but BXA made like a joke. I guess he has a relationship with the Vancouver guys, the Sportsnet Vancouver guys, and you guys cut away to them after the Vancouver late night game, and he made like a joke like, "Oh, this guy's not even listening. Look at him," and it was pretty funny. So, and everyone's like friendly, right? So it just makes for good TV when that happens.
It's fun. It should be natural and organic. And you know, especially like I'm doing the Monday night show and I say, we're just talking. Like, let's just have this conversation and we can have different opinions, and you want strong opinions. You want guys to be engaged and really kind of buying into what we're doing. And by and large, everyone seems to sort of have that same attitude. And at the end of the day, we're also there to entertain. It's a heavy time in the world. You know, you think about the news going around the world. It's tough, right? A lot of people are coming to turn on TV to watch the Leaf game or whatever game as an escape. Like, this is something they're interested in, passionate about, but it's not life and death. And I think we have to present it as much. It's got to be, at the end of the day, entertaining and fun. And I think that's something I always try and make sure we don't lose sight of. Like, yeah, the Leafs might be losing, or yeah, whatever might be happening, but it's not that serious. We've got to, you treat it as a responsibility, but we also just try and be light and engaging and have fun at the end of the day.
Oh, absolutely. Which, as a fan, you can tell, and it comes across almost every time that you guys are on the panel. And a guy like Kevin Bieksa, who's come in, and he kind of came out of nowhere in terms of the broadcasting world, I feel like, and that guy's poised to be a star in the broadcasting world. He is a great addition to any panel. Brings a lot of great moments, which kind of leads me into that next question of like, you got any just absolutely just, if you're looking back on the David Amber highlight reel, you got any just great moments that you can remember in terms of like, I know there's going to be a plethora of moments that are out there that you could imagine, but is it covering Olympic Games? Is it courtside Raptors? Is it, like, what exactly is it that is, maybe your favorite moment of your broadcasting career to this point?
Yeah, I mean, I've been asked that question a few times, and I do think the Olympics is probably that thing. And listen, I've covered World Series and a number of Stanley Cup finals. And, I was there for Vince Carter's very first game as a Raptor, which was really cool. And I've covered the Raptors in the playoffs, NBA championships. I've been very fortunate to cover some amazing things, but the Olympics to me is sort of the pinnacle. And it's not just the athletes, but it's the nationality that goes with it. Like the fact that we can, kind of legitimately kind of wave that Canadian flag, and being in Salt Lake City in 2002, when we were talking about Cassie Campbell-Pascal as one of my colleagues, the Canadian women's team, avenging that 1998 loss to the U.S. team on American soil with the refs and everyone working against them. It was incredible. I'm having like a tear in my eye watching Canada win gold in both the men's and women's at the Olympics in 2002. And getting a chance to see Usain Bolt up close. My mom's from Jamaica, so obviously I've got some interest in seeing the Jamaicans do well, especially on the track. And, getting a chance to sort of be within arm's length of what Usain Bolt was doing, winning, 3 golds for an unprecedented, third straight time back in Rio in 2016. Those are moments I really are going to remember forever. Those are moments where you got to pinch yourself and say, wow, like, this is the profession I'm in. And this is such a cool opportunity to be here. And it's just, those are the moments where you kind of go, wow, this is amazing. It makes up for those Tuesday nights you're, sitting down to do a Raptors Charlotte Hornets game, when the Raptors, the Andrea Bargnani era, where you're just going, oh my goodness, I can't believe this is my life right now. It makes up for those moments, because there are those moments. As much as I love the job, there are some of those times you're walking into work going, oh boy, this is going to be a hard one to sell tonight. This isn't the best matchup. These aren't the best teams. But it really makes up for those moments when you're covering something where everything's on the line.
For sure.
That's funny. Do you think, like, I guess you would know, so does the performance of the team that you cover kind of almost determine like the enjoyment of your job on a given night?
Hey, listen, Stewie, that's a great question, and it's not incorrect. I was a host for the Toronto Raptors for 3 years. With Leo and Jack and Sherman Hamilton, and working with all those guys. And we had a lot of laughs, but I can tell you, when they were losing 60 games and you're looking around and they're getting their butts kicked, and it's January 8th and they're 22 games out of a playoff spot. And it's hard to, be as pumped up as you are when you're covering a good team. I was, my first 2 years during the Sportsnet package of hockey, I was the Oilers regional host. And I was on a set with John Shannon and Louis DeBrusk, 2 great guys, and we had some fun shows. But this was the year before they got Connor McDavid. They got Connor McDavid because they were one of the worst teams in the league. And then it was the first year with Connor McDavid where they were coming up. It was starting to ascend, but he also got hurt and missed half the season with a broken collarbone. Those are harder years to do, and they're going up against good teams and they're losing 4-0. And we're coming into the intermission. And it's like, it's not that we have to be all cheerleaders, but it's just to have any level of positivity, it sometimes is more difficult. So it is much easier to answer your question if you're covering a team that's had success and you're, just the whole environment is more enjoyable. I've been a beat reporter where you're out and you're covering a team on a day-to-day basis. I've done that with the Blue Jays and I've, did that with the Maple Leafs. And it's hard when the guys are struggling. It's tense, right? It weighs on them. So it projects onto you a little bit too. So everyone likes winning. Winning is more fun than losing, right? When we've all played sports, winning is definitely more fun. So it translates even as a broadcaster.
Awesome. I guess we'll wrap up with like some NHL predictions. And I guess, I don't know, DK, do you have one to kind of tee off? Because I don't want to just ask you like who's that's an
the
obvious
Stanley Cup favorite. Yeah, no. So what's a
storyline?
Is it obvious? I have no idea who's going to win the cup.
No,
now.
I don't mean like I don't mean it's obvious in that way. I'm saying like everyone probably like asks you like your predictions, right? So maybe do we have a team?
I'll get a question on this because it's recent. Like, what do you make of this whole Chicago Corey Perry? Like, what do you make of this whole situation? I know their GM came out and had a whole press conference where he said something, but also didn't really say anything at the same time. And it's kind of a big deal that everyone's kind of got their eyebrows raised at right now. Is this another issue in Chicago but what's your take from the outside looking in?
Well, first of all, I think it's sad. Corey Perry, if you just look at him specifically as a hockey player, I mean, he has won everything there is to win, basically. He's been an elite player with a Hall of Fame resume. I think if this is the end of his NHL career, it's a sad way to finish his career, and I don't know that to be the case. It's hard for me to speculate on anything, DK. I don't know. None of us know what happened. We know whatever has been alleged is bad enough for the Chicago Blackhawks to essentially waive him and terminate his deal and do it in a very dramatic fashion. So it's not nothing what they're saying occurred. Until we hear from Corey Perry, until some of these details, and I mean legitimate details, not the innuendo and crap that we're seeing on the internet, which we can't take very seriously as we know. Until we sort of know the details, then it's hard to comment. But what I will say is it's a sad situation. When I said my father used to work in news and news can be so heavy, what I love about sports is generally it's not. And it's tough when suddenly you go, wow, there are issues that take place. And we've seen this in all sports, not just hockey, but there are serious issues that happen. When you're dealing with 3, 4, 5, 6, in the NHL's case, 700 players, there's going to be issues that occur during the season. It's sad. It's hard to speculate on anything without knowing the details. You saw the look on Kyle Davidson's face and how, morose he was and how he looked very, hurt by the whole situation. So whatever's occurred clearly is serious. And it's sad that possibly is the end of Corey Perry's career. And without knowing the actual specifics, it's hard to say much more than that.
Yeah, no doubt. Let's a little bit of a brighter subject and a brighter spot, brighter team right now. How about what do you think about the Vancouver Canucks? Like right now, I'd say they're probably my favorite team to watch right now. I'm a Leafs fan, obviously. At this point, it's like no reason greater than geography. At this point, it seems like, but to actually watch, I love watching the Vancouver Canucks, and they're doing really well. And like Rick Tocchet seems to have like sort of turned that team around since he took over. So I'm curious to know from your opinion, do you think they have like staying power?
Well, Stewie, I'll tell you, I'm with you. I consider them must-see TV. They're very exciting. They're a dynamic team. They have incredible goaltending. I mean, they lead the league in goals scored. And we like seeing goals. And it's an adventure when you're watching a team, that has these explosive players, Petterssons and Millers and Besser, who's, doing incredibly well. It's been just really fun to watch them. And I think you hit it on the head with Rick Tocchet. They seem to have taken on his identity. Rick Tocchet, you mentioned you were born in 97, I guess, DK, so a little bit before your time, Rick Tocchet. But this guy was a fierce competitor. I don't even think there's an equivalent to him in today's NHL. This guy would do anything to win, and he was just an animal on the ice. And today's NHL is much more about speed and skill than it is about ferociousness. But I think what he's done is he's painted a certain level of competitiveness and demanded that within a structure of his team. So it makes it really fun to watch because they're in every game. They battle every game. Do I think they have the staying power? Stewie, you were asking that. I listen, do I think they're going to win the cup this year? Probably not. But do I think that they're a legitimate playoff team? Absolutely. And you have these great dynamic players who are their high-end players have been elite, and their supporting cast, they're doing exactly what you asked your supporting cast to do. Dakota Joshua and McKay, I mean, these guys, and they're grinding and they're forechecking hard and they're banging bodies, and you're kind of going, wow, it's a formidable group. When you have that high-end skill and that blue-collar work ethic, it makes for a really exciting product, and that's what we're seeing in Vancouver this year.
Awesome. Yeah, absolutely. Everyone's buying into that Rick Talk. We talked about this in the previous episode. Everyone's buying into the Rick Talkett game plan, and when people buy in, you can really tell, right? And there's a team that bought in. I can really tell that it's transferring to success all over the ice, in the standings, everything that they have. I like that they got a Norris caliber defenseman in Hughes, and they got a Vezina caliber goalie in Demko. And usually, if you look at who wins the cup, they got one or both of those things, which is the Norris caliber defenseman and a Vezina caliber goalie. Yeah, Vancouver, with Rick Talkett at the helm, it's sky's the limit for them. But before we get you out of here, David, is there any charities, any organizations that you support that you want to shout out, that you want people to know about? Is there anything like that David Amber supports on a day-to-day?
Well, I appreciate that. I do work with a few different groups. Special Olympics is fantastic. I was just at their gala a couple of weeks ago, and honestly, to see these young Olympians living out their dreams under some really tough circumstances, but the level of confidence that the Special Olympics provides, to the Special Olympians is amazing. And it's in Calgary. The Winter Special Olympics are in Calgary at the end of January, early February. And, if you can support the Special Olympics, that's a great cause. They do something called Draft an Athlete, where you donate some money and it goes towards, all the training, all the equipment, all the travel necessary to make the Special Olympians, be able to shine at the brightest time in their respective sports. So that's really important. Juvenile diabetes. My father was a diabetic, and I do a lot of things with juvenile diabetes. And that's another, cause that's close to my heart. Right to Play is another group I do some work with, and that's great. It gets kids in really underrepresented groups the opportunity to play sports, whether it's in Africa, and these kids are growing up in horrible, war-torn countries without, all the things that we kind of take for granted, even just clean water and a safe environment and shelter. And Right to Play brings sports into their lives, enriches their lives, gives them an extra level of confidence, and really, makes their lives as good as they can be. So those are a few groups I would say definitely, if you have the opportunity and the means to support them. It doesn't even have to be financially, but just they're always looking for volunteers and for people to come on board to be advocates for those groups. I would, strongly suggest that's something you really, not just enrich other people's lives, you being involved in it will enrich your own life too.
That's awesome.
That's awesome.
I'll
is amazing.
Try and find links to kind of include in the description for you there. I don't mean to. I don't want to keep you too long, and I swear we're already over time, so I apologize. But I want to just say you're looking jacked, man. Like, how do you stay active, or like what do you do in your off time? Do you hit the gym or something, or are you still playing sports?
Yeah, I mean, I still play hockey. I still play hockey just in a little pickup with some buddies, so it's not crazy over the top, but it's a nice way to get out and just stay active. And yeah, I like to go to the gym. I find it very therapeutic. BX is always challenging me too. So sooner or later, we're going to have a little, the squat and bench off or whatever the hell he's going to make me do against him. But, he's a professional athlete. I'm a civilian. But yeah, I like to try and stay in shape. I think it's just a good way to, keep your mind fresh, if nothing else, and your body, obviously, but more your mind, is some clarity,
For sure.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. And you know what, David, with that, we'll wrap up. We'll get you out of here. Maybe I'll send you a message, in a couple weeks, and then in a year and a half, you can get back to me and we'll have you back on the pod here within the next 2 years. We really appreciate you coming on, man, giving us time, giving us little guys a shot. And we can't thank you enough.
Yeah, hopefully it was worth the wait, gentlemen. My apologies, sir. I don't check my Instagram very often. I'm glad we connected here. Thanks a lot for having me on.
Thank you.